Hello, welcome to another episode of Live Stream Insiders, episode 128. We have got updates for you on all sorts of live streaming apps. We've got updates for you on Vimeo, and we've got updates for you on Facebook Live, and also a little known app that streams to Facebook Live, which is a bit of a bargain. You may not have heard about it, but we're going to be talking a little bit about it tonight, and also telling you about some of the changes that they have made there. So listen out for that. Also, of course, we've got our case studies as well from the world of hotels, from China, and a really interesting case study if you're still trying to make live streaming pay for you. And a great thing to look out for, a live stream from the National Geographic channel. Hello, I'm Peter Stewart. This is Live Stream Insiders. My background is in presentation and production, and the background of my co-host is Krishna Day, and her background is all to do with image and managing, and also the tech side of Live Stream Insiders, and her how-to guides on Krishna.me are absolutely superb. So if you're ever stuck for, well, she can tell you herself. Hi, Krishna.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to be checking your comments here in terms of in the conversation. We really appreciate you joining us. You said in terms of my background is all about image. Well, there's a bit of it is about personal branding, but most of it I'm really passionate about helping organizations large and small actually use technology to be able to share their experiences and share their stories, which is why you and I partner together, Peter. On Livestream Insiders, if you are not familiar with the show, and as I said, thank you for everybody joining us here live and also on the replay. One of the things that we like to do is bring you the latest tools, technology, case studies in around 30 minutes. I have to say that last week's show was a mega show, but boy, there was a lot of great case studies in there. And our goal is just to give you ideas and inspiration to encourage you to consider adding live communications. That could be video, it could be audio, into your marketing, into your social media communications. It could be into your crisis communications. It could be for employee engagement too, all of those different areas. So we've got some really interesting stories again for you coming up. I've got a few tech updates. Peter, as usual, has had his eagle eye out there, curating lots of examples. One thing, though, he doesn't even know about this, but when I actually went live today, and tell me, anybody in the comments if they've seen this as well, what's happened is, remember that story we told you about probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now, which was about the ability to go live simultaneously on more than one page directly and natively within Facebook? Well, that popped up when I went to go live today. It came up with a little mark in terms of actually telling me that that's now available. So you'll need to head over to your settings to be able to enable that. But it's just like the cross-posting we've had for video, but now we should find that we'll be able to cross-post to pages as well, if you wish to do so. Really good for those brand partnerships you've got and for influencer marketing. Talking about influencer marketing, there was a big event in Ireland on Friday, which was all about partnerships in terms of brands and bloggers in particular. Some new guidelines. If you check out my Twitter account at Krishna Day, you'll find a link to that event that was going on, and also there's some new guidelines that were literally produced on Friday. Really, really, really important if you want to be compliant with the guidelines and rules that apply in Ireland. Obviously, it's different rules in different markets. Anyway, a couple of bonus tips there. Peter, you've got a story for us, which is all about Vimeo. Again, a platform that we've talked about a number of times here because of their introduction of live video some months ago.
Absolutely. Let's kick off with Vimeo. Not often we can say that. Vimeo is perhaps, 4 or 5 down the pecking order, maybe a little bit further than that when it comes to those main live streaming platforms. Obviously, it's trying to give a bit of an elbow to the likes of YouTube. But you know what? Because it acquired Livestream a few months ago, it's going leaps and bounds at the moment, and there is something which is going to be shipping over the next 2, 3, 4 months or so, which you may want to get your hands on, which is going to make live streaming potentially much easier for you. It's a subscription service out of Vimeo. It's called Vimeo OTT. It's going to be a service that will allow creative live streamers to create subscription-based video channels online or in apps as well, and adding live content to those videos. And so 4K streams is what we're talking about. So this is going to be quite high end. There is going to be a separate little area, kind of sandpit, if you like, for the beginners, but it's going to be very high end when I talk to you about 4K live streams, and also some additional hardware and some additional software as well. And it's going to be, as I say, subscription service too, which gives you some idea of the kind of market they're going for. And as you would imagine, after they acquired, as I say, Livestream, 6 months ago. So there's going to be a new encoder that's going to be available. It's going to be called Studio One, desktop size 11-inch mini ITX box, which allow for broadcasters to stream in up to 4K resolution, and also give them the opportunity to give 2 4K HD inputs, 4 HD outputs, or 4 SDI inputs as well. So as you can see, this is the kind of thing which is going to be used by some really big, perhaps broadcasters and other pro organisations that are really getting to grips and trying to make live streaming work specifically. So the big companies, the big brands, some of those live streaming companies as well. And as I say, expected to be available in the next 3 or 4 months as well. Also, there's going to be, as I say, not only the hardware, but also the software as well. So that's going to be giving you all sorts of different kit out of the box as well. And also it's going to be available not just for Windows, but also for Mac as well, which is really interesting. So compatible with both of those different platforms. So multiple cameras is what they're going for. So that sits in the same kind of market, not only as something that Facebook Live is talking about, but also Switcher Go and the Switcher Studios are already doing, and a couple of other apps as well. So that program is going to be running on both operating systems, high-end professional output, but also what they're calling a simple mode designed for beginners as well, and hopefully a price to match that as well. So that information comes courtesy of digitaltrends.com, which is what we spotted during the course of the week. So Krishna, some really interesting stuff coming out of Vimeo, and I should think they're going to be leapfrogging some of those other brands and be able to stream direct to what your Vimeo channel, and presumably to be able to capture all of your live streams and to archive them on your Vimeo channel as well, which is really, really interesting stuff, isn't it?
I really like Vimeo as a platform generally for video content, and it's pretty accessible in terms of price as well, and it gives you a lot of granularity in terms of what you can share. I haven't personally had the opportunity to try their live streaming platform, but it looks like they're really going full steam ahead now with all those updates. Talking about updates though, now we want to talk about a platform that we actually first talked to you probably back in December of 2016, or the organisation we talked about then. I did a live stream with the owner and the founder of that platform, and at the time they actually had a product which was available for Mac. I'm a PC user. Peter is a PC. Sorry, I think Peter is a Mac user, I should say. Correcting me there, myself there. But I actually hadn't had a chance to test out that product, and it's called Just Broadcaster. Well, subsequently, they then brought out Winbroadcaster, and we did talk about it, and I think we've mentioned it a couple of times on the show already with updates that they've had. Well, this next update, I think, was going to be really of interest to you, because if you're like Peter and I, we like to interview other people, and those people may not be in the same location. And so, for example, we're using here Blue Jeans because we actually can have up to 9 people on screen, should we wish to do so. Plus, we can share the screen as we've been sharing, already during the conversation today. Well, if you're a PC user and you've been looking at people who are using tools like Ecamm Live with great envy, because Ecamm Live is a great and inexpensive product for those people who are using Macs. It's not available for PC. I think this is a viable alternative. Now, there are lots of other platforms. We've talked about many platforms over the time, but this, I think, is seriously worth a consideration. And why we're raising it this week with you is what they've done in this last week is they've just launched a new feature. And I've already given a hint at what that feature is. It's about bringing in multiple people on screen. So you can do that just as we can here. We can bring people in on mobile or on desktop in terms of as guests. But in terms of Winbroadcaster, they actually allow you to do the same. You don't have to use an app, so they're just using a link. Now, there's a number of platforms that have introduced that style of approach as well. So you don't have to use an app. Your guests can come in. You can have up to 3 people on screen at the same time. You could be sharing your screen as well. And this is the thing that you might want to have a look at. There is a free trial you can look at, but also the paid for plan is, if I remember correctly, it's $30 for the year. And that's really accessible. I have to tell you, though, there's a free plan as well. And the free plan has lots of the features. It doesn't have the invite a guest. So I know lots of people who like to do updates and share information, and they're doing that in terms of maybe some high-end tools. Not everybody has the capacity on their computers to be able to do that. They want to work with browser-based tools, which are really, they're doing all the work. You're not having to worry about what's going on your PC and the load in there. Obviously, you need to have a good internet connection. But one of the things you might want to take a look at is check out Winbroadcaster. Now, all of the things that we talk about here on Livestream Insiders, we curate all the links plus additional resources to support you. So in the links today that we posted after the show, I've got a link about the article that they've done about this new feature with multiple people on screen, but I've also given you a link where you can do a comparison of the free plan versus the paid plan. So if you're really just getting started and you're not sure what's right for you and you're happy to go live with just yourself on screen and maybe sharing your screen, that it doesn't have the same quite resolution, but it's definitely worth having a look at. So there's a free plan, there's a paid plan, there's a free trial that you can check out as well. Definitely worth having a look at. I should also say something that we don't use here on Blue Jeans, but is available to us to do, but is also available on Winbroadcaster, is the ability to share a video. And so you could, for example, put a trailer in at the beginning of your live stream. You could put something to close off your live stream, maybe kind of a call to action in terms of where you want people to go. Obviously, make sure that the video content you're using, you've got the rights to. You always have that notification that comes up on a live stream on Facebook to make sure you're compliant with copyright and terms and conditions. That's something that Peter and I are really hot on, and we give no apologies for actually mentioning that. If not every show, then every other show. That's just because of the backgrounds that were coming from myself from large organisations and Peter from major global broadcasting organisation. But do check out Winbroadcaster. They've got a Facebook page. I find their developer is very responsive, worthwhile testing out their free version. If you've been looking at those people saying, I wish I had a Mac, I wish I could use this inexpensive product, well, I have to tell you that Winbroadcaster are bringing out lots and lots of updates. We've talked about them a few times already since they brought out their PC version, and it's definitely worthwhile following.
Absolutely. And, you know, for that price as well, for that price, you may think to yourself that the layout, that the design, that the interface may not look very good. But as you saw from those screen grabs, I think it looks really sharp and really kind of professional. It's really worth having a look out. As Krishna says, we've got the details in our show notes a little bit later on. So, are you still trying to make live streaming work for you and actually get some money out of it? Well, let me tell you about a really interesting thing that is happening in China, where a company there called Shops is really making live streaming work for them by broadcasting from the United States of America. Let's just kind of put this into context. Deloitte say that live streaming will drive $4.4 billion of direct revenue in China this year. That's an increase of 37% over last year and will reach 456 million viewers. Boy, oh boy, that's an awful lot of pairs of eyes. That's an awful lot of money as well. And this is how a company called Shops is actually doing it. What they do is they are based in China, but they have a team which goes around the United States of America and goes to large stores or even some small stores as well and does live streams from those stores and sells their products direct to China. So they've already got a presence. They've already got their own brand, as I say, called Shops. And they will obviously pitch to the individual stores in the United States who want to shift an awful lot of a large quantity of goods, of materials, to people who are shopping in China. And they're using that Shops platform to do it, which is really, really interesting. Everybody seems to win. And obviously, because of the time difference, very often they can do this live from a store out of hours, so it's not going to disrupt the actual shopping and buying habits of the actual store when it's opening, say, between 9 and 5 in the United States. And got a good quote here: "Transparency is the ultimate sign of authenticity," says Leah Wu, who's the founder and CEO of Shops, because what they're trying to do, obviously, is get the people who are actually designing the items, making the items, responsible for selling those items in the United States, to actually do part of the pitch with their Mandarin speakers as well. So they are third-party kind of people, third-party platform, and what happens is they will actually pitch to the company, so the store, the brand in the United States. That brand, that store, that shop will pay Shops to have that exposure. Okay, they will then take all of the orders and they will then make sure they arrive in China en masse, where they are repackaged and then redistributed at a markup for Shops as well. Everybody's a winner. The main brand is moving an awful lot of goods. Okay, Shops as a platform is making two lots of money. First of all, giving the exposure and selling their platform to the brand, then having a markup on the amount of products or on the products that are sold. And of course the people in China win as well, because they're getting some items that they wouldn't necessarily see. Everybody seems to be a winner. Let's give you some more stats. It launched in 2016. They've got 110,000 followers. Doesn't sound a huge amount to me, to be honest, but they generate on average £8,000 worth of revenue for the brand and the retail partner, so Shops and also the company as well, per streamed show. And of course, what that means is for the brand, for the shop in the United States where they are selling those items at the moment, they couldn't get that kind of exposure in any other way. So far, Shops has worked with 150 different partners in the United States over the course since they launched, as I say, in 2016. Now, let's give you a little kind of workflow of the logistics of how this happens. For each live stream show, one person on the team is actually filming the footage. The rest of the team is hosting on camera and also fielding the comments. They've got an awful lot of comments coming in. They reckon about 5 per second. And then sometimes they've got to rush off and they've got to do a bit more research about the fabric or the size or the quantity that's available, the colours. Sometimes even one of the members of staff will actually have to get dressed in an outfit or go onto the camera and pose or hold something that they want to actually show. And they've got several people who are watching and buying every single show. That commission that Shops takes between 15 and 20%. So that's not small fry, is it? They're obviously doing their best to make a lot of movement between the brand and the customer back in China. But you know what? They are not the biggest company that does this. There's another one called Tmall, which has become the biggest arbiter of live stream commerce, and they account for 55% of live stream revenue in China in 2017. Now, Is that giving you a few ideas? Could you set up something similar? Could you set up a brand, a channel where you don't actually do any of the selling yourself, but you enable other companies to use your brand, your platform, your expertise, your know-how, your gift of the gab to come onto your stream and to actually sell their products to your audience? There's an interesting thought. Digiday.com came up with the article. We've passed it on to you to help live streaming work for you, to help a little bit more money, a few euros, a few quid, or a few dollars into your bank account, which can't be bad.
And remember, we were saying at the beginning of the show, and I mentioned about influencer marketing and partnerships. That's a good example of that. Obviously, dependent on the platform, you just need to make sure you're aware of what you need to do. For example, we're seeing that the branded content tags have actually been rolling out more significantly to people. So you might not have been one of those first large brands that had access to that. In terms of the disclosure, I actually can see it on my content now. Even if I'm posting a video, not necessarily a live stream, I can see branded content tags. So just make sure that you're aware of the platform policy that you're working with and you remain compliant. And of course, in Ireland, it's the ASAI guidelines. Obviously, if you're in the US, you've got the FTC guidelines, and there's lots of guidelines wherever you might be. I've got some quick updates for you now that were initially spotted by Matt Navarra, who actually is working currently for the Next Web, and he announced in this last week that he's moving on as an independent consultant. He's based in Wales in the UK, and he's been with the Next Web for quite some time. He has a very eagle eye in terms of watching out for things. Lots of people pass him information in terms of things that they're seeing, and he then passes it on. So some of the things I'm going to share with you, I don't have in-depth knowledge of because I'm not seeing them, and all we're seeing there is a tweet and a screenshot. So I'm giving these to you because you may well have seen them, you may have spotted them, and I'm thinking particularly those of you who are watching the show who are in the US. I've got one thing in the few updates I want to share with you, which is something that I can see, and I'm going to offer that to you as well, because I think that could be pretty exciting. These are the updates that we've got for you. As I said, thanks to Matt Navarro's Twitter account, we've got all the links and also the original people who actually posted about these onto Matt and sharing with him the news and information. The first one is something here which left me a little bit confused, I have to say. So this was a screenshot that was in the tweets that we saw, and the idea is the fact here that Facebook is testing a tap to join message on Facebook Live videos. I wasn't sure if this was tap to join as in collaborate. So you know that on Facebook Live, we can actually bring somebody else in natively if you're watching on mobile, or if it's actually tap to join as encourage people to, hey, come watch with me, or come watch this content. So let us know in the comments, have you seen this feature that's rolling out in terms of this tap to join feature appearing on top of a Facebook Live? Again, what I'm not sure of here is, was this spotted on desktop or mobile? So watch out for that. Are you seeing a tap to join? Where do you see it, desktop or mobile? Is it encouraging people to come in side by side with you? Or is it about just encouraging you to watch that content? The next one we've got is something that, again, I haven't seen this and I haven't had this opportunity to do it, but you might be aware that actually there's tipping that's been tested. Now, it's been tested with gamers, but it's been tested also with other live streams. That was announced back in about March time, and I think from memory that we actually covered that in the show as well. And initially, the idea of actually being able to tip somebody was actually, I've forgotten what the name was at the time. Let me see if I can even remember it. But now it's actually, you can now tip people. Sorry, what was that, Peter?
It was Sparks.
Sparks. It was initially announced it was going to be Sparks, but now what you'll see here, and this is again a screenshot, which was stars. So you can basically, it's like what you find in many other apps where you can make a purchase of stars, like we can see in Periscope or like we can see in many other live streaming tools as well. So it's like kind of buying some tokens, and now we can give people, live streamers we like, some stars. I haven't seen that. Have you? We're going to be watching the comments later to see if you actually have seen that. Maybe Peter can just check if anybody's got any comments there that they've seen these features. This last one is a screenshot from me because I was able to see this one, but again, it was highlighted on the Twitter feed of Maps. And this is, if you are aware, on mobile and when iOS 11 came out, you actually can share your screen. You can do screen recording. So it's really handy if you're doing tutorials. So you might want to share in terms of how to do something, and that's all enabled within iOS 11. I know Android users have had that accessible for much, much longer, and some phones even have had that available themselves. I had that on a phone I was using when Periscope first came out. That's how I did my Android Periscope tutorial, by actually using the screen software on the phone. In this case, though, what you can see now when you go to that feature, it actually gives you the option to share your screen to Facebook. And I actually did try that. And so that would be potentially a live stream that you're able to do. I haven't been able to get it to work. So I would really love it if you're using an iPhone and you are familiar with how to do that screen sharing, if you actually can test out if it works for you. It is not working for me at this point in time. I've put a link in the curation if you're not familiar about how to enable this screen capture. You do it from the control panel on your iPhone. You need to be on iOS 11 to be able to do it. But it's really interesting in terms of that now being enabled. When I tested it, it just kind of closed on me, but it didn't give me any options to select, go to a page, go to a profile, go to a group. So I suspect at the moment it might just be to your profile. And you can turn your audio on, you can turn your audio off, as you can with this iOS feature. So just if you're testing, obviously go onto an app on your phone or something that you share on your phone that you're happy to be able to share. So just be careful what you're doing. So I went into an app that I could have used as a little tutorial and decide whether you want to leave your audio on and off to be able to share it. But I couldn't get it to work, unfortunately. I've tried several times. I might do a reboot of my phone in terms of close it down and start it up again, or turn off the control panel feature there in terms of being able to do that screen recording to see if that works. But I'd be really interested if you can get this to work and what you learned. Does it go to your page, your profile? Have you got any granularity in terms of what you could do about privacy settings? Is it the default setting you've got on your profile at the moment, and that means who sees it? So as I said, lots of questions from me. I can see the feature. I just can't get it to work.
We've got a couple or three more items to come before the end of the show, and Krishna is back in a few moments' time with a case study, a really interesting live stream. It is out of this world, courtesy of the National Geographic channel, so that is on the way. Really quick one from me. We told you last week, a really quick one, wasn't it, last week, about how Disney were recommending people to be using Facebook Lives and live streaming in general when they're going around their parks, which is an interesting idea, actually, for privacy reasons, but never mind, it just occurred to me. But also there's been another article during the course of the week via forhoteliers.com, and they've been talking about how hotels should be using live streaming more and more. So that particular article is talking about how brands can draw attention to room features and increase click-through rates to their pages. Maybe they're suggesting that you could have a tour of a new site, your spa facilities, new rooms, your revamped property, and that kind of thing. And it occurred to me, Krishna, that, you know what, I think that is not going far enough. I would have thought that for hotels, it's not just the hotel that you're staying in, but you want to give people an idea of everything they can do in the area, I would have thought. So yeah, not just the hotel facilities, which is absolutely right and proper and great and fantastic and superb, but also I would have thought, you know, taking a walk down to the beach, or going to the local museum, or having a tour around an adventure park, or showing people what the local golf course is like, or where they can go to eat, and actually going behind the scenes of some of the local eateries and restaurants and theatres and bars, and giving people a whole idea of what they can do in the whole destination, not just the resort. But anyway, if you want more of my ideas, the live streaming handbook is where you can get them, or I guess guess you can actually, approach me and you can pay me for some more of my ideas. But don't think too specifically about your particular business when it is a destination that you're talking about. The same thing goes for estate agents. Don't just do tours of a house that's for sale. Tell people about what is available in the whole area so they get a 360 view of what it's going to be like living in that area. It's the whole destination. Don't think too small.
Yeah, I've done a lot of work with tourism organisations over the years, including travel agents, associations and so on. And you're absolutely right there, Peter. And one of the things I remember, actually, I think I wrote it up as a case study at the time. It happened to be on Twitter, but it doesn't mean that you couldn't do it in this way. It was actually a really good example of partnerships again. So like the local tourism authority, a kind of a landmark hotel in the city. If I remember rightly, it was done in Central Europe, places like Prague and Budapest. And then they also collaborated with a popular blogger, and they actually had like a virtual concierge, and you could do that even better in terms of with live video now and take people around in terms of places to go. So you have a concierge service. It actually did great things for that particular brand in terms of their visibility. But also, it's a way of actually building that personalized relationship. There are so many options. There isn't an industry, I think you'd agree, Peter, that you couldn't use live video on. It actually depends on what your goals are and whether it fits for your organization. So let me bring you a last story from me. And this was one where I was quite surprised in terms of who I saw this organization partner with. And it was actually National Geographic put out a media release, and you'll find that again in the curations for Livestream Insiders, that actually a couple of days ago they hosted their first Instagram Live from the International Space Centre. And actually the person they partnered with the person who was doing like the interviewing of the astronaut was Will Smith. I guess that's partly because of his association with the kind of movies that he's done as well. But a couple of things struck me. Live video on Instagram is not new, but here's what you could take from it. Are you able to do a live video for the first time from a location? So clearly for National Geographic, and being able to do one in terms of hosting it there on Instagram Live. And actually what happened was that there was an interview that was able to be done, of course, using that facility of that interviewing option there on Instagram Live. But one of the things you could do there is if you've got an unusual location, perhaps it warrants a press release. And I can tell you, having done a search on a well-known search engine, of course, there are many search engines out there you could use. Boy, did that get a lot of coverage. So obviously they've pushed it out through different options, through different ways. And of course, with it being National Geographic, they've got a great footprint. And because of the topic and because of the influencer they're working with, the celebrity that they're working with, that also gives them a lot of extra reach as well. But it just struck me that actually Instagram Live isn't new. Lots of organizations are doing it. But what they did really well was they pre-warned people about it. They promoted it. They created some great graphics. They did a press release and they got some media coverage. But the other thing that I'm going to be watching out for is, as you know, within Instagram Live, if you've missed it there, it's available for a period of time if you allow it to be. But actually, there's no archive. What they did say in their press release, and so you might want to watch out for it as well, is they actually seeded some questions that they thought that Will Smith might be asking. But then they said in that press release, they actually covered off that there will be an archive of it. So I checked out their account today. I checked their Facebook page and their Twitter and so on. I can't see the archive of that. Perhaps they'll put edited highlights together and it might be online somewhere for us to check out. There was not even a kind of a screenshot of it on their own Instagram profile, because I had a little bit of a scroll back there. Maybe I didn't go back long enough because they produced a lot of content in the last couple of days. But I think interesting that they're doing it first time in terms of the International Space Station. But I think there's probably more we can take from tactics that they used that we too can use too.
Absolutely, and of course that's what our case studies are all about. You're not necessarily going to take everything lock, stock and smoking barrel and use it yourself, but it's mixing and merging and meshing with those ideas that you're given with the other ideas that you've already got and coming up with something which is a little bit magical. One final thing to tell you about before we go tonight. Last week we told you about a local government meeting, a local council meeting in Kent here in England, where somebody accidentally superimposed a Stone Age man hair on one of the local politicians, which was all a little bit embarrassing. Bit of an oops moment. We've got another one to end the show with this week. And finally, it's when a KDKA reporter in Pittsburgh was doing a Facebook Live in her car, reporting on a situation there in Pittsburgh, and a passerby thought, that's a bit strange, there's a woman in her car talking to herself. So she called the local police, and the local police came and stopped her. She wasn't moving anywhere, she was already stopped in her car, but interrupted her broadcast and said, we've had reports, ma'am, that you're a crazy person talking to yourself. We just wanted to check everything was okay. She thought it was a wind-up, but no. All of this was caught on the Facebook Live, which you can still watch. I watched it in the week, and you can actually hear the conversation between Megan Schiller and the local officer from North Versailles Police, who were called to see that she was all right and she wasn't a crazy person talking to herself. No, not at all. She was, in fact, on Facebook Live. Of course, I don't know about you, but I actually have seen quite a few broadcasts where people pretty much have been talking to themselves on Facebook Live because they're 0 or only 1 or 2 viewers. I was watching a couple of those a little bit earlier on today. No names, no pack drill. But you know what? It's always good to have more and more viewers, of course, and that's what we're trying to do here on Live Stream Insiders, trying to increase your the kind of stuff that you're doing, increase the quality, get more viewers, and also get perhaps more sales as well. It's Live Stream Insiders episode 128. Thank you so much indeed for watching. We've covered a lot of ground this week. Well, before you go, I just want to say thanks so much to everybody who's here in terms of the comments. I'm not sure if my phone is playing up, so I will be checking the comments later, but I didn't see anybody commenting about that update in terms of whether they've found they've got the facility on their phone to be able to stream in terms of with that integration there on iOS. We'd love to know about that, and also what your thoughts are of some of those social selling examples that we had for you this week. The other thing that we know is that sometimes, that's why we try to keep the show relatively short, but we know that actually people really like to have like the cliff notes. So that's why we do a summary in terms of the things that we've got, that we've covered, all the links for you. But the other thing I wanted to just let you know about is something that I actually alluded to last time, that actually I have done kind of a separate recording, but it's inspired by Livestream Insiders. So it's called Livestream News, and if you're familiar with voice apps such as Alexa and their facility of their flash briefings, what you can do is, usually the updates are about 1 minute to 2 minutes, maximum about 3 minutes long. It's enabled for you in 5 different Amazon stores, all the UK speaking Amazon stores, where you actually can enable flash briefings at the minute. So that's Canada, US, UK, India and Australia. So if you like to just get the cliff notes, so they're not going to be as bang up to date. I mean, right at the top of the show, I gave you some news that even Peter didn't know about because I just saw it when I went live. And so that's how up to date we are here on Livestream Insiders. So for those of you who are aficionados, then actually, you know, and you're up to date, because I know a lot of you here are watching Livestream Insiders and you're active live streamers yourselves. For those of you just exploring, so I can see some of you are actually just starting to explore live streaming, you might find this a helpful resource. And there's a link there, again, in the notes to be able to find out all the links for those different app stores. So just very quick tip, if you're using Amazon Alexa, then you'll be able to add it to your flash briefings, and you might find that of assistance. Peter, I'm going to pass it back to you now, though, to end up the show and tell people how they can find us again next time. Absolutely. And you know what? Plus, you may have spotted Krishna and I during the course of the week because we've been approached by another high-profile live streamer called Ross Brand, who takes our show and cuts it into pieces and then uses it during his show as well, with our permission, of course. So he does little kind of news inserts from us into his shows during the course of the week. So, Ross, thank you very much indeed for the added exposure, and very glad to be able to help you out and to spread the word about live streaming. So it is Dr. Day and Dr. Stewart here. Why? Because this is us. We have our finger on the pulse of the live streaming landscape 24/7, 7 days a week. We look back over the last 7 days of live streaming news and updates and bring it to you in around about 30 minutes, this time on a Sunday once a week. Thank you so much indeed for the loan of your eyes and your ears this week. We'll catch up with you in another 7 days. And until then, happy live streaming. Goodbye for now.